In terms of how this is done, right? So as I mentioned, the classical method of study is text-based, right? So it's not like we're using slides and stuff here, and there's a lot of, ideas that are espoused. But traditionally speaking, you would study at every level of your study, you study core texts, and then they were elaborated upon. And then at the intermediate level, you study a higher level core text with commentaries and so on. And then at the advanced level, the same thing, right? You study a book of that level. So generally speaking, there's three terms I want you guys to keep in mind. Three things to keep in mind. There's three types of books that kind of define the methodology of study, right? Three types of work. So you have what's called a matan, right? The plural of this is mutun. So uh, a matan is like what we're studying here. Another word for this that's often used is a mukhtasar, right? Mukhtasar. Mukhtasar means like a concise or an abridgment, a concise text or an abridged text, right? What's a matan? A matan is essentially a concise, you might call it a concise principial text, right? The matan is the basis, it's the bedrock of all of your learning. So no matter what science you're studying, the foundation of all of your study is this thing called the matan, right? What's a matan? A matan is basically like what you've got here, for instance, like the Maraqi Sa'adat. It's a concise doesn't have to mean that it's very short. You can have mutun that vary from literally two A4 sides, right? Or three or four A4 sides. Like the Ajrumiyya, for example, in Nahu, it's like you can write it on four A4 sides, right? Uh, and then you have bigger text, right? So you can have a matan that's about 100 pages, 200 pages. What's meant by concise is its style of writing is concise. Not that the book is short necessarily. It might be short, it might not be short. But the idea is that you have these things called mutun. You might call in English, they refer to these as primers, right? What's meant by that is like a foundational manual or a foundational textbook in any given science, right? A lot of the times, what this consists of is it could be either prose or poetry, right? So it can come in both ways. But basically, what it covers is in a method you're going to find the core issues, like the skeletal structure of that science, right? So the absolute essential issues that relate to the hadith sciences, for example, like a method like you have the Bayquniya, it's a famous text in famous poem that's written in the hadith sciences. Or essentially, what it does is it gives you key terms, key concepts, and definitions, right? That's a matan essentially. So what you're getting from a matan is like the overall structure of a science. So like for example, here you're reading a matan in Aqidah. At the end of studying a matan in Aqidah, what's expected from you? Like where should you be at with that data, with that knowledge, right? What the matan does is it gives you an overview and it gives you the core issues. So you will, like, for example, once you've studied a matan in Aqidah, like if you read the Tahawiyah, or if you read, like in GTSK, we read a matan called Aqidah al-Awam, for those of you who were there for that, right? So what the matan does is it gives you um, like a contents page. So if I was to ask you, what does Aqidah cover? And you read a matan, at the end of the study of the matan, you will know that, okay, Aqidah covers the existence of God, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It covers issues around the attributes of prophets. It covers issues around like belief in the qadr. You have a clear outlining. A matan gives you an outline of the entire subject matter, right? Of whatever science it is. So whether if it's fiqh, like it'll be something like this, fiqh al-ibadat. So it'll tell you um, it'll give you an outline of what needs to be covered in the fiqh of ritual worship, for instance, right? So this is what we call a matan. So like we said, and the mutun can be three levels. You have beginner level matan, you have intermediate level mutun, and then you have advanced mutun, right? So that's core terminology for you guys. A matan is basically a concise principial text, right? What's meant by principial is it gives you the foundational principles of that science. So whatever you're studying, a method will give you the foundational principles at the level that you're studying at. So say, for example, somebody's already studied Maraqi Sa'adat, they've studied foundational Fard Ain level fiqh of worship. So then they want to study at an intermediate level now, right? They'll study a matan that's of an intermediate level, right? And then you can study a matan that's of an advanced level. So a matan is a text that gives you the principles of a science, the foundational core issues of a science at the particular level that you're studying at, right? So if you're studying at a beginner level, it's going to give you just the absolute minimum, right? Studying at an intermediate level, it'll flesh out the minimum. It'll give you a bit more elaboration, a few more issues maybe, right? And then, like, I mean, if you look at this, for instance, Maraqi Saadat, it'll tell you, for instance, a book like this will tell you that there's, you know, uh, 12 things, for instance. I can't remember the exact figure now, but there's 12 things that break your wudu, right? And then you go and study the same topic, fiqh of ibadat, at an intermediate level. And what it'll do is it'll give you more scenarios, right? It'll elaborate more scenarios. It'll give you more detail around those 12 issues that break wudu, for example. It might branch out into more details, right? But the idea is it's still giving you the core issues at that level, right? So that's what a matan is. So what we're studying here, for example, is a matan. It's like a base, a foundational textbook that gives you the core issues of aqidah and the fiqh of worship, the fiqh of ritual worship, right?